Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a doozy for you today. This, as you know, the American Rising is about showing that there is a lot of corruption in our government and something that we already know, but it's also about what's happening right now in American society, and that is a rising is happening. People are starting to see that what we're being told in the political atmosphere isn't exactly what's really going on. We have a lot of opinions about people and their belief systems that the mainstream media is responsible for cultivating for us. And now that the J6ers are out of prison, we're able to start asking questions ourselves and getting to know what's been going on while we were locked in a cage. And the more I dig into things, the more I'm able to confirm what I already know, that America's become extremely polarized. So, welcome to the American Rising, where not only do we hope to promote American values, but also to bridge gaps with the other side and show that really there is no other side. We're all American at the end of the day, and if you're America first, and that's how you vote when you go to the polls, then there's some commonality where you're my brother and you're my kin. If you're against America and that's how you vote when you go to the polls, well, then the complete opposite is true. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Rising. Hang on to your shorts because we're going to do something that not a lot of people are willing to do these days on both sides of the political spectrum.
We will get through the uncertainty of a new administration in Washington. As I said, we've done this before. We've been through this. And
isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is.
You condemn white supremacy. And he fumbled around, didn't say anything. I said, how about the Proud Boys? And he said, well,
Ronald Reagan was 2 months into his presidency when John Hinckley Jr. blew a $20 million. About blowing up the White House.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look what happened.
I want to take this message to talk to your viewers real quick about the story and the conversation we need to have now. The BOP is wasting lots of tax dollars in frivolous spending, and
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Rising. I am your host, Barry Ramey, and you are on the new War Boys Studios. Ownership is Enrique Tarrio. I'm sure you know that name. He has been dubbed the black face of white supremacy, and that is hilarious. So without any further ado, I'm going to tell you about our first guest, and then I'm going to bring him on so he can tell you in his own words who he is and how most of America may not know about people like Mark Fisher. And he is the co-founder of one of the original 13 chapters of BLM. Now, I may have got that number wrong. When Mark comes on, he can correct me. But he was one of the original founding members of the original chapter. And it may come as a surprise to some of you, Mark's story and what Mark actually believes and who he is. You hear the term BLM. And I know for myself, I can speak for myself. I'm automatically concerned. So I'm going to play first a video about Mark, an interview that Mark did with the New York Post, and I'm going to let Mark's video explain who Mark Fisher is.
Kamala Harris will use anything
to her advantage. I definitely will not be supporting Kamala Harris. If she ever got anywhere close to power, it would be a disaster for this country. Historically, the Democratic Party has been the party Black people overwhelmingly vote for, but we haven't gotten anything in return. So to me, that's the definition of insanity. I've been a lifelong Democrat. I voted for Biden in 2020, which I do regret now. I come from a family of Democrats. I just felt like after 60 years, our ghetto still shouldn't look like a bomb was dropped in it. The education system and school systems should not still be horribly failing. Crime and the poverty should not be so absolutely abysmal as well. But for so long, we've just been blindly loyal to the Democratic Party for no reason. They have given us no reason to have such loyalty and to maintain such loyalty to them. And many people were doing a lot better under Donald Trump. He implemented opportunity zones for the Black community, where it was tax incentive based and it was incentivized investments into the Black neighborhoods, which is what we needed to revitalize our dying economy. Whoever feels like they're not being heard and is interested in conservative policies and conservative politics can look at Donald Trump. And how could you not want to follow someone like that?
Well, and as you're going to continuously find out when you watch the show, I'm not a professional, and this is all a learning experience for me. But wow, if you were somebody like me sitting in federal penitentiary and heard about BLM showing up to the Proud Boys trial and voicing concern for the treatment of them, would you believe it? Would you dub it a fake news story? I did. I was on my prison bed and I got a letter from somebody that had an article about Mr. Fisher and the Epic Times. And I was blown away that there was a common ground we have. And I've always thought, and I'm speaking for myself now, that one of the wisest things I've ever heard was from Malcolm X, that the greatest threat to America and the Black American man is the white liberal. And I think everyone listening to this show would probably agree. We have common ground, but if we watch the media, we're probably never going to find it. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on the man himself and let him introduce who he is to you and why he believes what he believes. Mark, welcome to the American Rising. It's very good to see you, man.
Great to be here. Thank you, Barry, for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So I want to first off start by saying, thank you for coming on. I can't imagine. I know what it's like in my political spectrum, in my world. I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback from some people for having a BLM co-founder on without even actually looking at what's being said. And I think that remains true for both sides of the political spectrum. What say you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've dealt with it firsthand. And so I'm very well aware of respective ideologies and, political boxes that people stand on and they dig in and don't budge. So, yeah, especially on my side, like you said before the intro, during the intro, that Malcolm X, one of the most profound things he ever said was that the most dangerous thing is a white liberal, and I feel like I agree. And I feel like that positive race relations have absolutely been hijacked by the perverse Democrat Party.
Yes. Well, a lot of people don't know this about me. I've told some very close friends. I know some people very close to me that are aware of this, but in 2016, I was a left-leaning independent, or so I thought. And it was Donald Trump's campaign and the things he said on it, and watching the Democrat Party do what they did in 2024, which was usurp their own primary process, and Hillary cut Bernie out of it. And we just watched it blatantly happen. And fortunately for me, I was able to see that moment, and I started to pay more attention to what he said. And I never looked back as far as the reality of how important an America First agenda is. So, what inspired you to speak up in the midst of all this polarization? You showed up to the Proud Boys trial and you voiced your concerns about it, and you had some opinions. Please share them with everybody.
I just felt like I had some common ground with people, and this is why it's so important to expand your horizons, and because paradigms are basically lifelong programming, and it's almost impossible to break free of them, especially when I look inside personally, introspectively, for a Black Democrat who's been raised Democrat, come from family of Democrats, parents of Democrats, and these are our greatest influences. So it's almost impossible for Black people to break free of the victimhood narrative that is always bombarded with by the Democrat Party. And so I came to an understanding with some like-minded individuals who were America First, that we have an enemy and it's not each other. We have a common enemy. And what I was able to do with the platform that I had was kind of elevate that and highlight the fact that what's happening with the Proud Boys and the J6ers is similar to what has been ravaging the Black community. Every administration, every term, and every president, either party, it's the same thing. And it was highlighted that once we start losing control collectively as citizens, then this is what happens. And I said I believe that the J6ers are being led to the slaughter like lambs for future demonstrations for anybody who would want to dissent. And that's what it was. When you talk about, they were handing out sentences like Halloween candy. You get 20, you get 20, you get 10, you get 15, you get 10, and like it was nothing. It's people's lives. So I just understood that this was an opportunity that I had to take, that I couldn't pass up, to highlight what's going on in my community, but as well as what's going on in the J6 community as well.
So you basically, instead of buying into the narrative of this division that we see, you decided to take a chance and try to leave the world a better place than you found it. Let's be honest. That's what your courageous step was, to put yourself out there and say, hey, look, this isn't fair, but we've kind of been saying that for a long time. And I feel that I think I'm with you in the fact that J6 and the people got to experience how harsh and how messed up our judicial system actually is, and how unfair it can be when the system is pissed at you. And I think that there's a lot of people in America that, okay, we know the statistics as far as Black on Black crime and we get it. Okay. But let's just assume all of you out there that have watched the persecution of J6ers, that you were involved in our trials, you showed up to our sentencings, and you were there and you saw the egregiousness. I think it's a little fair to say that some of those numbers may not be accurate. I could speak from my own personal experience that when I got to prison, I was dumbfounded by two things. One, how many Black hardened criminals were in there that actually had staunch conservative values. Some of them had not seen the light of day in 20, 30 years, but knew that the bullshit going on with Trump was just that. BS. They knew it. They knew what the Democrat Party was. They understood what was happening to me. And they were basically like, well, now you guys get to feel it for yourselves. And you know what? Maybe that's what God did, because our judicial system, ladies and gentlemen, there are hundreds of thousands of men and women in prison right now, especially federal prison, that are close to innocent or completely innocent. And this judicial system and the way its practices are set up, it is a system that will drag innocent people in because of the way they operate. What was as far as you showing up to DC, did you feel welcomed by people? Was there any pushback from the MAGA side? What was it like, your experience showing up and saying, here I am, this is how I feel? What happened?
It was a total eye opener. And I tell you what, when that happened, though, I never realized how important it was for the left to shut me up until that happened, because I started thinking for myself. And now all the people who praised me and gave me this platform and elevated me, and loved me. Now all of a sudden they hate me and they discrediting me, and I'm no longer a legitimate activist, and I don't represent BLM, and I'm a Uncle Tom, and I'm a coon, and I'm this and that, and you name it. Same people. Just because
Well, I think the J6ers got a chance to see what it was like to be black, and you got the chance to see what it was like to be a MAGA Republican.
And I tell you, they welcomed me with open arms, Barry. I mean, it was an eye opener. I get more hate, and I said this one time. There's nobody more racist than white liberals and black liberals as well in the country. They welcomed me with open arms. Because for so long that powers that be have prevented positive race relations, because when that happens, what happens is and I'm very careful about this because I know what happened to Fred Hampton when he figured it out. See, so we got to tread lightly. We got to walk softly with big sticks. And I told you when we spoke earlier, very discreet, very selective, because my message is powerful in itself.
And you're a threat. You're a danger to the narrative.
So it's awesome to be here with you.
Yeah, it really is, because I lived vicariously through your article that I got, and until I was in FCI Miami prison about a year and a half of my 3-year stint, and I made several copies of this. I paid for a copy card off of commissary, and I would go to the library and make all these copies of your article, because I guess maybe it was an essence of, I felt vindicated that, look, there's somebody that gets it. It's not fair what's happening to the Proud Boys. But then you have to look and say, okay, well, what's really going on? It's not just about that. It's about the entire system. We have to, okay, now that we have something to relate to, which is the J6ers and what the Proud Boys are going through, it's not exclusive to them. They're just the last one of many, many, many examples in society that the system is corrupt. So I copied your article and I passed it around to every single unit in there. And when I left a year and a half later, that article, all beat up and tattered, was still on the news displays in most units being passed around to that day. So your article had a serious impact in there, because a lot of the different Hispanic gangs and other gangs didn't know how to take the Proud Boys. They didn't know how people look. They bought into the need of narrative, but in prison, sometimes that is allowed to exist in the prison politics. So, but when they really looked into us, and a lot of them had no idea, wait, you're the national chairman's a black Cuban. We thought you guys were all white. Like, no, pretty far from it. I mean, I think one of the guys in the New York chapter is a gay black dude. Wow. So, I mean, we don't care. We don't care. We just care about love for America. And anybody that's willing to go to the polls and vote America first, that's my brother. That's my American citizen. How do you feel about this current, the first 10 days now of the Trump administration? Do you feel that there's things that should be looked at, changed, or do you like how it's going? What is Mark Fisher's opinion about this?
I have no complaints. He's doing exactly what we voted him in to do. This is what I voted for. See, a lot of people are callous with their vote. You understand? But when you, and this is what I try to teach to my community, no longer do we just give our vote away. We have to vote policy over politician, interest over party. And so this is what I voted for. A lot of people aren't happy, but this is, I mean, you have to have been under a rock to not think this is what the president was going to do, because this is what he was saying for 10 years. 8 years, like this is what we need. We're gonna make America great again.
It's so funny, and I it's like I keep saying to myself, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. I find it, even though I get very angry at, I distinguish between a Democrat and a leftist. And I think, there's probably a distinguish between a conservative and a far righter, whatever that's supposed to mean, but I do think that there is a difference, and it's just, it never ceases to amaze me. Like you said, that when you came out and you said, hey, I support MAGA, you were all these clearly racist terms, the Uncle Toms and all this. And for some reason in that in that aspect, it's okay for a white liberal to say these things. It's accepted. And I don't know how we got there and how that, their moral fabric that they claim they stand for, it's so easily changed. I mean, I remember them calling Caitlyn Jenner a transphobe. I mean, I don't know how we got there. So how do you deal with it? Like, what drives you to say, you know what, I'm not changing my opinions. Your negativity is not going to affect me. I'm going to be Mark Fisher and I'm going to voice my opinions. What is your motivation? How do you go about parrying that hate that comes? So I'm assuming from both sides.
Well, for me, it's when I first started my organization in Rhode Island, it was only from one side I was getting all the hate. So I was used to that, right? So, the names and the threats and all of that was eye-opening, but I soon got used to it. But when I started getting it from my own side and my own people and people who look like me, because I decided to extend my hand and think independently, that was kind of an eye-opener. And so for me, it's like I already been through this one time, and when I first started my organization, I had to step out on a limb because I felt like, okay, when I first led that protest through the streets of Rhode Island to the Capitol building in Providence, 10,000 people from the front, and I always make a point to state that I wasn't in the back, I wasn't in the sides, the middle, I was at the front. I thought that might be my last day on earth. And I'm not joking, because when they were interviewing me all week up until the day of the protest, because we posted it, we were posting it all on social media, and they wanted to know what was going to happen, and we saw what happened. So I felt like, okay, I might die today, I might get shot, I might get kidnapped, I might get whisked away into some boiler room by feds and tortured, I didn't know, I might get, hijacked. And, but I was ready for it because I knew that I was not only outing myself, I was outing my family. I was going against history. I was going against common sense. I was going against my fears. I was going against everything to do what I did, but I felt it was important enough for me to do it. And so I did it.
You just said family. What was your family ever exposed to any negativity or things that that should not have been directed at them because people were mad at you? Did you ever have that experience?
Let me tell you something, Barry. I'm trying to think of the word, the watershed moment for me when I realized that I was called to do this was after the protest. Nothing happened. Nobody came for me. I wasn't kidnapped. I wasn't arrested. I wasn't tortured. I wasn't shot. And I said to myself, wow, I overcame sometimes the biggest challenge that we'll ever have in life is us. And I overcame those fears. So now there's no, like, Pandora's, I've been unleashed. There's no going back to that day before the protest. So for me, getting hate from my own side, it's eye-opening, but it's far from intimidating. It's just eye-opening and it's funny. But I do what I do to prove to the naysayers that you're not going to bully me. You're not going to intimidate me. You're not going to make me think the way you think. You're not going to make me think a way that you want me to think. That's just not going to happen because I was built to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, you are the epitome of against the grain, especially at such a time when the polarization was so thick and so heavy, and the animosity from both sides of the political spectrum aimed towards each other. To break free from that and actually know that you're going to get doxxed, you're going to have problems, you're going to be labeled this, you're going to lose friends and maybe even some family. That happens to a lot of us. And you still rolled those dice because you felt like it was the right thing to do. I mean, it's an overwhelming sense of bravery, honestly, and I find it personally, I find it inspiring. It is courageous. So how does your family, I mean, your immediate family, you guys tight? Do you guys see eye to eye, or is there differences that you're able to put aside and sit down and have dinner? What's that look like for you?
I think this is the generation that's going to make America great again. It's going to save America. You understand? Because we can see through the BS. We know how to navigate it. We know how to rectify it. We just, like I said, got to be very discreet. We got to be careful. We got to be wise. We got to be smart. But most importantly, we have to be compassionate. See, we got to put ourselves in, and this is why I'm where I am today, because I put myself in the shoes of the J6ers. Once I did that, I started making national headlines. See, this is the moral of the story. You got to be bigger than yourself. You got to be bigger than your fears. Your cause got to be bigger than personal. And then when you do that, you'll reap the rewards. You'll reap the benefit of having a larger vision, you know, other than what's good for you. See, I care about, like Donald Trump, what's good for America. I care about what's good for Black people. I care about what's good for white people. I care about what's good for Hispanics. You know what I mean? As long as you are American, an American citizen, okay, I care about you. And I said that. I take no pleasure, I said, in any suffering, much less an American brother of mine or sister. And they went crazy.
Well, Mark, you may be this starting point, and I don't think anybody even knows it yet. Your actions could actually be the starting point of an olive branch from one side to the other, to where versus all the name calling and everything we get, to see us have these conversations and come together and realize who we are versus what the media tells us we are. I think it's pretty profound. And you may be, I'm hoping that God laid upon you the domino effect, and Mark Fisher being the first one. So I do commend that. And to touch on what you just said about the younger generation sitting in prison and listening to the media, you would never know that, yes, there is an American Rising in the younger generation, even high school kids. And I had this experience. I went out to a Tesla rally. The left was doing one, and the right tried to do a counter one. There's some miscommunication, and we did not have the numbers. We kind of looked weak, but you had all those staunch little old ladies out there, and they weren't backing down. And something incredible happened. Two high school kids, they were Hispanic Americans. They saw what was going on, and they were young, good-looking kids. They stopped. They didn't know this rally was going on. They stopped. They went into Target and bought markers and wrote their own sign out, Trump Vance. And him and his little girlfriend came out and held their sign up and just stood there peacefully, just looking. I asked them when I interviewed them, I'm like, I'm assuming you guys are out of high school. They're like, no, we're still in high school.
Wow.
It's like, oh my God, it's happening. And I commend you. Anybody listening to this interview that thinks what Mark Fisher did wasn't courageous and brave, then obviously you haven't been a Proud Boy out in a Antifa BLM riot, outnumbered and outgunned, and see how radical things can get. So for him to come out there and say, I support these guys in their mission, and to have a bigger projected a motive, which is very positive, to getting people, like you said, you put yourself in their shoes.
Let me tell you, my heart was pounding too. When I went down there to the courthouse to lead that prayer vigil and to see about these hearings, and these sentencings, as time went on, when I first got there, I was scared, I didn't know what to expect. My heart was pounding because of the narrative the media portrays, of the Proud Boys, of white nationalists, Christian nationalists, all these titles that they give them, that they give the Proud Boys to make them to try to prevent us from coming together. So I went through those same emotions the day of the protest back in 2020 when I was all by myself. I had like one or two people with me, but they were just there. It wasn't even, it was all me. I decided to go do this, make a statement, do this prayer vigil, because nobody can hate on that.
You'd be surprised, but I think you're right.
Well, then
you are right.
Anybody that hates on a prayer vigil, they're no threat to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, because I know who walks with me and who lives in me. So I'm not afraid of any, satanic, demonic behavior, activity. Mm-mm. And so I look at the people who welcomed me, and they're just as important in this, renaissance as I am. People like you. You don't know how important you are as a domino in this, to keep pushing this narrative forward, that you're not my enemy. My neighbor is not my enemy. The average white person is a friend of mine on the street. There's not going to be any bitterness. See, these are perpetuated by the media. These emotions, these narratives by big business, because the bottom line thrives off disunity and us being on each other's necks and at each other's throats. You take that away, where's the story? Where's the clickbait? Where's the bottom line? And I spoke with somebody. And I said, the thing about it is, the reason why that when you talk about BLM, the reason why it has its teeth is because of the narratives that we drown in. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. When do you think that, I think like most things, BLM started with pure intentions, with a pure motive, that a point that they wanted to articulate. And America is the home of free speech and protest, and being able to do that. Where do you think, at what moment or series of moments, do you think that BLM took a turn for another angle that you didn't originally support? If that is the proper way to frame that, I'll let you.
Absolutely. Well, it was what I would call, I'm not even going to call them the co-founders, because Patrice Cullors and Alicia Garza and the other one, they just happened to be the founders of the chapter out in California that was funded by George Soros. And we know what happened with all of that money.
That was my next question. Go ahead.
It went to luxury homes, mansions, over-the-top parties, and you name it, and so on and so forth, and what have you. And we got questions. I got questions that year from many media outlets. How do I feel about that? Did I get any of the money? Did we get any of the money? And I said no, but I was not willing to throw them under the bus at that time. But things change, and now they need to be held accountable for what they did. But I feel like this: Black Lives Matter is a global street movement. It took its it climaxed in 2020. It reached its zenith, and it was a global. Every state in the country had a chapter from every corner, and multiple chapters in some states. Like my state, I had BLM Rhode Island. We had BLM PAC, BLM Barrington, the white neighborhoods, BLM this, BLM. So it was a movement, and what they did might have destroyed the moment, but definitely not the movement. And so I feel like too many Black people worked too hard for me to let BLM disappear. Too many people put too much time, blood, sweat, and tears into this movement.
Have you ever had a chance to talk to Patrice? Have you ever had any words with her one-on-one?
No, because they tried to make me look bad, and it was the right media, the right wing media, that elevated me to where I am now. And President Trump called me on my phone. See, and I love President Trump.
Awesome.
He gives us the right to be an alpha. Is he the man or what?
Yeah, I mean, it is. He's the epitome of man, and I know a lot of, if there is any liberals torturing themselves now listening to us speak, I'm sure they would agree by disagreeing, to say it lightly. But it is such a for me, it's an honor to talk with you, just because of the way I found out of the name Mark Fisher, and how important I saw your story is currently, and still is. And again, I commend you much, but there's a lot of people out there that don't know that you exist, that because of the name BLM, they don't know that you actually stood in solidarity with the J6ers and the Proud Boys, and you showed up in person. They don't know any of that. Why? Well, because you're a narrative smasher, and the left wing needs to hide that.
Exactly.
There was a when we were in Northern Neck, we got into a little scuffle with some locals in a pod, and they moved a few J6ers into general population. And there we got to know a J6er by the name of Mark Ponders. Mark Ponders is from DC area his whole life. Mark Ponder he's about 56 years old at the time. He's a black male, proud MAGA supporter, and he came into the general population, and we found out who he was. He was a J6er. Of course, me, Ethan Nordine, a couple of the other guys, we went up to him. His family cut him off. He had nothing, no commissary, no nothing. And for us, it was like, okay, there's a J6er. So I got my girl on the phone. She put money on his books. Ethan took care of him, got him all the soap, because they don't give you nothing in Northern Neck, not even boxer shorts. We got him everything he needs simply because he was a J6er. And it was that moment that a couple of the Baltimore and DC dudes came up to us, and they're like, I mean, it was a moment of bravery, because they came up and they're like, hey, we owe you guys an apology. We had no idea. They're like, we had you pegged wrong. We seen you take care of that black guy. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't take care of a black guy. I took care of a fucking J6er, proud America first, and that's my people. And he had already done a stent state earlier in his life, had reformed himself, and now was caught up with J6. However, they put him in Butner, and they cut off all media and physical ties to him. They would not let none of his letters get through. Multiple people were writing him, and all of their letters were getting returned, because the story of Mark Ponder at J6, that was one they needed to silence, because a black guy that was pro MAGA, that you can go look up and see that he's very conservative. They don't want to see that. I mean, it's incredible. I remember getting on an interview and telling somebody recently that, I am for deportation. I'm for, if you're not here legally, you got to go. And I'm for sealing the border. And someone made a comment that I must not like Hispanics. So I got on the phone and I texted my Puerto Rican wife and let her know, hey, babe, I don't like Hispanics. You should probably be the first to know, because I'm just finding out. So it's this
craziness, the Matrix, man.
It really is, because like I said, I used to be a left-leaning independent, and I was really heavily involved in the Burning Man community for 10 years. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a wild hippie free for all out in the middle of the desert. And most of my friends were libtards, although I didn't really get involved in politics. And when I came out of the Trump closet, like you said, every flower puffy, fruity friend that I had called me a racist and a bigot and turned on me, disowned me. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Because I honestly didn't know all this was going on. And I never looked back.
It's funny, because what happens is you realize once you start waking up to the Matrix, then you see how vast it is, and how intricate and complex. I mean, it's not just like one news channel. It's all of them.
Yeah,
it's all the education, it's all the print, it's everything. And it's like they are dead set against having you unite and wake up to this. And I'm like, wow. So, it's like, all the universities, all the colleges, they're all liberal, left-leaning, whack jobs. And and that's the thing that was really like eye-opening to me, how vast this Matrix is, because you wouldn't know that because you're part of the Matrix when you're watching MSNBC or CNN or ABC or CBS or New York Times or Washington. You don't know that they're all on the same page.
Yep.
Keep you brainwashed. It's vast.
It's like,
I broke free of that paradigm. That's what I'm trying to explain, how difficult that is for that.
It's like you can't tell a fish it lives in a fishbowl. Like, you can't explain that. It's just its world. It's in there. Like, it is what it is. So I mean, I know, because fortunately I was smart enough to question things and realize that, and at first I'm like, well, I don't like Trump's personality. And one of my friends were like, do you vote for someone because their personality, or do you vote for him because of their policy?
And do you want him as a preacher, a pastor, or are you voting for a president?
Exactly. Yeah, but these days I'm very clear. I vote for his policy and his personality. Absolutely. That's what I'm voting for. The whole everything that this is. Anything that pisses off anyone that would vote for Nancy Pelosi, that's my guy or girl. I don't care. And I'll always say, I think the first gay president is going to be a Republican. So, mark my words. But I just think that we
got a huge enough tent, man, for everybody.
Yeah, because it's going to be the conservatives that don't give a shit about their sexuality. It's just what the person stands for.
Exactly.
I'm a very big supporter of Byron Donalds for the governor of Florida. I don't give a shit that he's black. He's a fucking staunch conservative that I know I can trust because of his behavior in Congress.
Absolutely.
So I'm a full supporter. And I wish people would get to realize that. And I don't blame them. Again, it's the media. The media has formed a lot of opinions.
Now, it's important that I actually put this disclaimer in there because I'm a huge Trump supporter and a Trump fan. As far as the Republican Party, I'm not quite as sold on either party.
I completely understand that sentiment.
We have to use the power that we have. See, they work for us. We don't work for them. It's not the other way around. And a lot of times our vote is taken for granted. It's not valued because we are so stuck and entrenched in our respective political boxes. We have to come together as Americans, and our vote has to have leverage for what's in America's best interest. This is why Trump won by a landslide. Not only the popular, but the electoral, the judiciary branch, the legislative branch, the executive office, by a landslide. Like, this was a mandate.
It was.
This is the type of government we want. America first. It's not about left or right, Republican, Democrat, or specific politician. But this is about a way of doing things in this country, making America great again, bringing us back to when I was a kid and I was growing up, those good old days when I feel like those were hijacked, the racial progress that we were making and that we were in the potential that we had was hijacked by these corrupt, perverse Democrats. So it's important for me to say that, but I also want to say one more thing. As far as the J6 community goes, and I got love for my brothers. I was doing prayer calls with them every weekend. I would be on the call, and I was consistently doing these prayer calls and encouraging and adding scripture and praying and being there. I don't like the fact that some in the community would benefit off the pain of the J6ers. I have a serious problem with that. When there's people who are racial opportunists, there are people who are obvious hucksters and with a grift in mind, and they use what other people have, lost everything because of and have been broken by and been humiliated by to make money. I have a serious problem with that. And
so you noticed.
Yeah. Who didn't?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to throw that in there for all the viewers that I'm definitely not for that. I'm not against that. I mean, I'm totally against that profiteering off of the pain. See, the people in the community that I love and that I rock with, they actually were soldiers fighting for America to make America great again. And they don't have daddy's money to rely on. And they don't have a grift to try to get paid off of. They're trying to rebuild their life. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's going to be some people watching this that might think that was a rehearsed moment, but you and I have actually never had that conversation before. You're speaking freely. And
I know the community.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
And I got my own thoughts and ideas on the situation.
There you go. And you're 100% correct. And I think that, like I said to my brothers and sisters in the J6 community, that we have to be very careful what we say and how we say it, because there's prying eyes watching both for us and against us. And our voices, unbeknownst to us, is amplified. And when we say certain things and do certain things, it reflects on all of us. And it even reflects on Donald Trump's administration.
Yep.
And I really hope that, anyone listen, my J6 brothers and sisters, I'm always coming from a place where just be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
Be careful if, what you say and how you say it. And, remember, you represent something bigger than yourselves, and you're absolutely right. And the truth will always come out. You can't hide it. It will always come out, and those house of cards, they will fall. So I do agree with you 100%. If you were going to say one thing to um, America First voters across America, if you were going to let them know one thing about what you've done, your work, BLM as you see it, what would you say to them?
I represent people who can't fight for themselves and don't have a voice and have been marginalized. My goal is to bring all the groups from the margins and put them in the center and give us a voice, a unified voice that is powerful, that is definitive, and that is relentless.
That is awesome. And what would you say to, in a kind way, because if I'm speaking to myself, because if it's me, I have a hard time doing this sometimes, but in a kind way, what would you say to people on the left or people on the fence or moderates that are looking at you right now and Mark Fisher, and what would you say to them as far as what your hopes for the future is?
I would say to the left, hold my beer.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, Mark, I'm going to be honest with you, man. If you sound like a Proud Boy, if I've ever heard one. I mean, so
I know, that's why.
and something tells me that that's probably not the first time you've heard that. So,
no, I know the community. I've ate with them, hung out with them.
I bet.
And like, those are my people, man.
We welcome open arms. We people don't understand what Western chauvinist means. The word chauvinist becomes, more of a man on woman type of ideal, but we love America and we stand for America. And if you have conversations with us, you're going to see real quick, we do not care about your race, the color of your skin, the place you were born, or your sexual orientation.
Not real J6ers.
No. Yeah. Well, absolutely. I do think that there's, without getting into the specifics, because I don't want to give it a pedestal. I do think that there's some very nefarious things happening right now in the MAGA community that are not for us. I think there's people acting on our behalfs that have really bad intentions. And I'm concerned that there's people out there that may be on a mission for some powers that be to start another 2020 riot, and this time blame it on MAGA. Please don't take the bait. It is more important that we come together and we talk and we have conversations. There's going to be people on the left and the right, mainly the left, that refuse to do it. But if we do not try, then we have failed. And I want to see more trying. I want to see more bridges gapped. And the more people do their research, they're going to realize real quick that they've been lied to. And I think we all have. And the great American Rising is happening. It is not a white American. It is not a black American. It is not a brown American. It is red, white, and blue, all colors and demographics. That's what's happening before our eyes. Mark, I'm going to give the last bit to you. Anything you want to say, anywhere people can follow you, talk to you, get a hold of you, reach out to you, have at it.
Anybody want to get in contact with me or see what we're doing, just go to blminc.org. You can reach out to me through there, see what we're up to, what's going on. And I just want to say, just to stay positive and stay humble, keep your heads up. America first, make America great again. We've come too far to go back.
God bless you, man. And you're absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Mark Fisher, BLM co-founder of Rhode Island, myself, Barry Ramey, a J6er, Proud Boy. And I think we've just shown you that positive conversations can be had. We hope that you follow suit, and let's get out there and make America great again for everybody. No reason why all this money is going to Ukraine, and we've got black neighborhoods in Chicago and other places that aren't getting nothing. These are tax-paying American citizens. Screw the Democrat Party. It's dead. We rise up together. And Mark, real quick, you're absolutely right. And once a little secret that I think MAGA isn't Republican. We're just forced to be that because of the two-party system. You James Langfords, you fucking Mitch McConnells. Oh, you get your shit together, buddy, because you're not one of us.
And we're a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, hell yeah, man. But peacefully and patriotically, we're going to make our voices heard. We're going to form unity. That's what the War Boy Studio is about. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you being here, man. I'm going to set you backstage. I'll give you a call after we go live, just touch base with you, man. Thank you so much for being here, broski. God bless you, sir. And you're a brave individual.
God bless you. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. Well, that's what this show is about. It's about exposing and showing you guys, the American people, that there is a rising happening, that pro-American values, that Western chauvinism and a pride in your country is among all of us, and it's for everybody. Every single person out there that votes for America first, when they go to those polls, you are my brother and sister. Every single one of you that goes to those polls and you vote for this Marxist crap that goes on in our children's schools and into our countries, well, I'll tell you what, the opposite is true for you. You are my enemy. I wish we didn't have to be there in this place. I wish we could all get along, but you guys are making it impossible. And you cross the line when you start teaching our kids this sadistic, sexualized crap. It's men that have to stand up and be a force to be reckoned with. And behind every great man was a MAGA supporting woman. I know I've got one. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, we will be silenced. Our voices will be shut down eventually. So please follow my show. Help me grow. And you can find all my social medias right here on the bottom: Rumble, Getter, YouTube, at American Rising. Your support is imperative to us surviving what will inevitably be another cancel culture that comes fast, especially if we don't win these midterms. Ladies and gentlemen, primaries, midterms, let's fucking go. I love this country very much. I refuse to apologize for how great it is, and I am ready to make America great again. I hope you all will join me. Thank you for joining it, the American Rising. I'm your host, Barry Ramey. God bless you.
We will get through the uncertainty of a new administration in Washington. As I said, we've done this before. We've been to this. And
isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is
You condemn white supremacy. And he fuddled around, didn't say anything. I said, how about the Proud Boys? And he said, well,
Ronald Reagan was 2 months into his presidency when John Hinckley Jr. blew a $20 about blowing up the White House.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look what happened.
I want to take this message to talk to your viewers real quick about the story, the conversation we need to have now. The BOP is wasting lots of tax dollars